Net.
So here we are in Cabinet Wicker in Maastricht with Nick Gavalis,
Yes.
who is the head of the Maastricht chapter of New Europeans, and Jacob Simon from Maastricht University. And we're talking about Europe, the future of Europe.
Exactly.
We're talking about why we love Europe. It's Valentine's Day, so we're expressing our love for Europe. There's been a big explosion on social media today to try and get that feeling of being European.
Exactly.
We don't necessarily mean Brussels, we mean Europe.
We mean
love
Europe in general. Yeah. More Europe, less
more
Brussels.
Europe, less Brussels, as Nick says. But first, of course, one of the topics of the day is still what's happening with Brexit.
Yes,
Can't
obviously.
get away from it. So, Nick, you were asking me about the Labour Party position.
Yeah, I had two questions with regards to the Labour Party's positions, and specifically my first question was whether the former Prime Minister Tony Blair actually benefited the campaign with his public statements and his public appearances, because his popularity in the UK was not, and it's not the best in general, but he's a Remainer, he's a fanatic, a pro-EU fanatic. So do you think that actually Tony Blair was a benefit or a loss for the Remain campaign?
I think it's too early to say. We'll have to see whether Brexit is stopped first. But I do believe that Brexit can be stopped.
Yeah.
But I think that the position of any Labour leader, present or past or future, is very tricky when it comes to Brexit.
Okay.
I think one thing you need to remember is that we had a referendum in 1975 when the Labour Party were in the government, and the Prime Minister was Harold Wilson. And Harold Wilson stayed out of the referendum campaign. He didn't take sides. He sat on the fence. And at the start of the referendum, it was 2-1 for leaving the European Union. And at the end of the referendum campaign, it was 2-1 in favour. And I think the mistake that David Cameron made, one of the mistakes David Cameron made, was that he tried to lead the campaign himself, and that backfired. And so we started off from a position ahead, and we ended up losing. Now, when it comes to Jeremy Corbyn, I was asked to advise the Labour Party a speech I made in Wiesbaden, actually, in 2016 to Labour International, but there were members of the National Executive, there was a member of the National Executive Committee there. And I said that I think Labour should sit on the fence in relation to what happens next and wait for public opinion to change. I'm happy to say that publicly now, at the time it was private advice, and that's what they've done. Because I think if Labour started to make it look as if it was putting itself in the way of the referendum decision being implemented, it could have had the opposite effect of what was intended. So I think Labour has to wait for public opinion to shift, and then it needs to come off the fence. I think the Labour Party's already come off the fence. I'm not sure the Labour Party was ever on the fence. They're certainly off the fence now. But the leader of the Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn, is still sitting on the fence. But I think he will come off. And when people say Jeremy Corbyn, I said, do you mean Jeremy Corbyn backs the National Labour Party, or do you mean Jeremy Corbyn? Because I believe that Jeremy Corbyn in the end will adopt the position of the Labour Party, which I understand it is to exhaust all of the other options, try to get a renegotiation of the deal that will fail, try to get a different kind of withdrawal agreement that will fail. All of the things that they are trying, all the different options that they're trying will fail. And in the end, they will arrive at a point where they say there's no other option but to have a second referendum. And we think there should be a second referendum. I think there should be a second referendum. Many chapters of New Europeans feel there should be a referendum. Many EU citizens and Brits abroad think there should be. And I think that that's the position that Jeremy Corbyn will arrive at, but only once he's exhausted all of the other options. So don't despair of the Labour Party position. I think that Labour are caught between a rock and a hard place. They have to do their best, we seem to be doing their best, to implement the decision of the 2016 referendum. But if they are unable to do that, then they have to say, well, there should be a second referendum. And I think that that is the position of the Labour Party, and I don't think Jeremy Corbyn will have a different view to that one. So it's just a question of time. There's a judgment to be made about when he comes off the fence on the second referendum, but I think we're pretty close to that now. And so my advice to people who don't like Jeremy Corbyn is that's much for you, but focus on the job that needs to be done, which is stopping Brexit.
Okay.
And Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party are the key to that. And don't despair of their behaviour, because they're in a difficult position, but it could be tactical rather than strategic, by which I mean don't read Jeremy Corbyn's actions as the actions of a man who's committed to taking Britain out of the European Union. Even though some people say he may prefer that, in the end he would take the position of the Labour Party, and the Labour Party position will be, when they've exhausted all the other options, have a second referendum. And in a second referendum, I think most people in the Labour Party, possibly even including Jeremy Corbyn, will campaign for a Remain vote.
Okay.